We are joined for this service by Patty Leffridge, our music director, and Adrian Dills, our director of education. Special music today will be from Jeff Chamberlain and Damian Masterson. And we are joined by all of you. You are welcome here today in all the beauty of languages, cultures, and skin tones that come together in your uniqueness. You are welcome here. In all the ways you experience and express gender, you are welcome here. In the beauty that is who you love and how you love, you are welcome here today. In all the varied ways you move through and interact with the world, you are welcome here today. With all the religious and ethical traditions that inform your spiritual life, you are welcome here today. Whether you come feeling despair or hope for our world and its future, you are welcome here. No matter how long you've been away or how soon you will return, you are welcome here. And you're invited to join us with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands. You are welcome here today.
I'd like to add my own welcome here as well, especially welcome to any newcomers. Thank you for being with us today, and to everyone, thank you for your patience as we navigate some of the technical experiments, and we have a slightly strange camera angle today, but we're all rolling through with it. Church is not a place to be perfect, of course. I will invite Meg back to lead us in lighting our chalices.
For our chalice lighting this morning, we will follow the practice of pagan and earth-centered traditions, our sixth source of Unitarian Universalism, by calling each of the four directions into our sacred space and time with words and candles. Spirit of the East, power of air, we call you into this circle, bringing refreshing summer breezes and lightness of spirit. Hail and welcome. Spirit of the South, power of the sun, we call you into this circle, bringing warm sunlight and a passion for summer joy. Hail and welcome. Spirit of the West, power of water, we call you into the circle, bringing life-giving rains and flexible attitudes. Hail and welcome. Spirit of the North, power of earth, we call you into this circle, bringing energy for growth and strength to rely on no matter what may come. Hail and welcome. Spirit of life within us all, we call you into this circle to recognize the spark of the divine within each one of us and the sacred transitions of the wheel we are ever and always moving through. And now we will have our time for all ages.
Good morning. So this morning we're celebrating our last worship service with Reverend A.J. Van Tine. Our relationship with him started a few years ago. We did some wonderful things together, and now it's time to draw it to a close. In order to talk more about relationships that have beginnings, middles, and endings, I thought it would be fun to spend some time with some of my favorite friends, Piggy and Gerald. This is called We Are in a Book by the famous cartoonist Mo Willems. Start here. Piggy? Yes, Gerald? I think someone is looking at us. Someone is looking at us. Who is looking at us? A monster? No, it is a reader. A reader is reading us. How is a reader reading us? The reader is reading these word bubbles. We are in a book. We are in a book. That is so cool. We are in a book. We are in a book. We are being read. We are being read. Ooh, I have an idea. I can make the reader say a word. You can make the reader say a word at the end, if the reader reads out loud. That is a good idea. That is a funny idea. Here I go. Banana. Did you hear that? The reader said banana. Oh, the reader said it again. Banana. So funny. Do you want to turn before the book ends? Ends? The book ends? Yes, all books end. When will it end? I will look. Page 57. Page 57? It's page 46 now. Eek! Now it's page 47. This book is going too fast. I have more to give. More words, more jokes, more bananas. I just want to be read. I have a good idea. Whisper, whisper, whisper. That is a good idea. Hello, will you please read us again? I hope this works. Me too. This is one of my favorite stories. It's so existential. Don't worry if you don't know what existential is. But it's just like being in a relationship and realizing that it's going to change. Gerald freaks out. Piggy does some research and plans ahead. No matter which kind of person we are, we can still notice and prepare for the ending of a relationship and the start of a new one. So I hope we've all done our part to get ready for this change. And even if we haven't, even if we still have a little freak out left, let's make use of our time together. I wish you all a wonderful week.
In this community of mutual care, we celebrate the great joys of life together and help share the burdens of sorrow and grief. As such, each week we share specific joys and sorrows from the lives of our members. If you have a joy or a sorrow that you would like shared on a Sunday, you can email joysandsorrows@mysfuu at any time with what you would like said. If you have something on your heart that you're bringing with you this morning that you haven't emailed ahead of time, you may enter that into the chat bar now for others to read. Our community holds the sorrow and in love the memory of Saul Weissman, husband of Julie Weissman, a former SFUU member. Saul passed away on June 10th. We send love and prayers to Julie and their family. Nancy Poley shares that her mother, Kay Poley, died in her sleep early Thursday morning after a very good life of 102 years. Nancy also shares that this means that she will be moving to Vancouver, Washington this summer, and is beginning the process to sell her home soon. As Unitarian Universalists connected to all others in our larger association and across the world, we hold in our hearts the congregation of UU Rock Valley in Rockton, Illinois, which on Monday morning was part of that whole town being dealing with an explosion at the chem tool plant and affected many homes and communities in that immediate area. The UU congregation, their property was covered in toxic debris and cleanup has begun. We are grateful for our Unitarian Universalist Association embodying the bonds and love and care between us, especially through their programs such as the Disaster Relief Fund and the UU Trauma Response Ministry. Holding all the joys and sorrows shared this week, or those left unsaid but still in our hearts, I invite you now to a time of meditation, reflection, and prayer. Great mystery which grounds us and surrounds us all, divine presence known by many names and in many ways. We gather on this longest day of the year, this third Sunday of June, celebrating all fathers and all manners and all kinds of fatherhood on this Father's Day. And we recognize a day after, Juneteenth, the 156-year-old holiday of jubilation and celebration for the Black community, just recently signed into law as a federal holiday, recognizing that date that the Union General Gordon Granger rode into Galveston, Texas in 1865 to enforce the freedom of enslaved people. Accorded to them, that freedom accorded to them by the Emancipation Proclamation from 3 years earlier, but withheld from those human beings by intransigent slaveholders who sought to test how long the arm of the federal government was. Grateful for this holiday to be federally recognized, we are mindful also that a performative symbolism like this is no replacement for the actual changes that are simply necessary for our nation to move forward in dismantling its white supremacist history and present. The righteous call for justice, for reparations, for the defunding and refunding of police institutions, the call for radical changes that may ask much of those with privilege and power, while also asking nothing more than basic justice. These calls can no longer be avoided by those who have been sheltered from them by power or ignorance. And let us not forget either on this day that the oppression of African Americans, originally via slavery, became Jim Crow, which then became today's mass incarceration. Holy power of memory and history, let us never forget that shameful blot on the 13th Amendment, the exception which means that slavery is still legal in this country when it is instituted as punishment for a crime. May we pray and fight for a nation that enslaves no one at all and cares equally for all, as no human being can be reduced to the worst thing that they have ever done. Holy mystery, great sun, bringer of light, life, and energy to our planet, we honor you on this day, the height of your power, this solstice. We acknowledge and respect the power of your heat, especially here in the mountains and valleys of Northern California. We welcome the turning of the star wheel as summer begins and we turn to the next chapters of our lives. As every ending and goodbye is also a beginning and an introduction, as the great wheel spins forever turning, loss into new life, destruction into creativity, endings into ever new beginnings. I invite you to continue in this spirit of reflection, meditation, and prayer as we hear hymn 73, Chant for the Seasons.
Vernal clouds have turned the star wheel, summer is upon us. Vernal clouds have turned the star wheel, summer is upon us. Gliding are the hawks, hovering above the hot and yellow hillside. Vernal clouds have turned the star wheel, summer is upon us. Crickets in the night, chirping in our ears, the sound of moonlight music. Vernal clouds have turned the star wheel, summer is upon us.
And now, in the spirit of saying goodbye well, I would like to share with you a poem from Mary Oliver called In the Blackwater Woods. Look, the trees are turning their own bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich fragrance of cinnamon and fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds. And every pond, no matter what its name is nameless now. Every year, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this: the fires and the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends upon it, and when the time comes to let it go, let it go.
Slowly growing, breath of never knowing, new things rise from the ground. Breeze is slowly warming, new thoughts newly forming. I know there's a life all around, and holding on comes with. I'll take this day I've made and trim away all that I fear. Wheel turning around, I'm going where it takes me. Follow the sound of the stars and it's just a ride with many secrets to reveal. I'm gonna ride on that wheel. Fire from the south, from the dragon's mouth, I hear a clearing call. It's time to get things done now. The fields are overrun now. It's time to tear down that wall. I'll take my staff in hand and cross the borderland and search until I found it all. Wheel turning around, I'm going where it takes me. Follow the sign. stars that give me. It's just a ride with many secrets to reveal. I'm gonna ride on my wheel. Choppy water up ahead. Mother Earth, don't let us forget that we're not invisible. That's why we are gathered here. Know the truth and face our fears. Nourish seeds we have sown. Together conquer hate. Pass boldly through the gate. Powered by love that we have known. Wheel turning around, I'm going where it takes me. Follow the sound of the stars that lead me. It's just a ride with many secrets to reveal. I'm gonna ride on the wheel. I'm gonna ride on that wheel. I'm gonna ride on that wheel. I'm gonna ride on that wheel.
I would like to share this reflection with you about saying goodbye. As we say goodbye to one season and welcome another, I would like to share some feelings of my own about goodbyes, which inevitably lead to new beginnings. My mother used to stand outside the drop-off area at the airport and sob every time I took her to catch a plane to go somewhere else. To be honest, this really bugged me because I felt like I was supposed to sob too, which I never did for many reasons, one of which was my mom always stayed way too long. Goodbyes have never been very difficult for me, and I am grateful for this because I know that this is not so for many people like my mom. Some of the most memorable goodbyes for me were when my son drove off one morning to go to college on the East Coast, and when I drove away from my daughter's college dorm room in Oregon many years ago. I didn't feel sad though. The change and possibilities of those moments were exciting and hopeful for all of us. A more bittersweet and painful goodbye was when I left my dad in a hospital room in New York many years ago to fly home to California to care for my two babies, knowing that he would die soon from cancer and that I would not see him again. Even so, there was some joy in the moment, as he had had a huge personal renaissance in the last year of his life, and he was ready to go. It has always seemed to me that the quality of life is more important than the quantity. I recently packed up my office and began my journey of retirement. It was very unceremonial, as I was the only one in the building, as I trudged the long hallway with my box of personal belongings in silence. So I said goodbye to the copy machine, a few plants that I kind of liked. For me, saying goodbye to this most important part of my life is harder than saying goodbye to many of my beloved colleagues. Those that I hold most dear, I will certainly stay connected to. But the meaningful work that I love, the structure of getting up and suiting up every morning, will be missed, at least for a time. Saying goodbye to beloved pets as they age and sicken is a really tough one. I have quite the backyard burial ground, as I have sent many critters off to painless and peaceful oblivion over the years. It is hard to face the next day while missing these beloved constant companions, but I remind myself that it does not matter how long their lives were, but that they lived them in comfort and joy for however long they graced our shared home. Goodbyes seem more like fare thee well to me, And of course, don't we all wish our loved ones to fare well? Don't we all wonder and hope that all good things will come next? Even when parting circumstances are painful, isn't it the healing that follows full of grace? Doesn't the phoenix rise from the ashes? Doesn't rebirth follow death? Well, happily, our dear AJ is young and healthy, and he's only going to Rochester. I am sure that we all wish him to fare well in his new community of spiritual inquiry and growth. We will miss him, and we are so grateful that he traveled with us for a while on this journey, which included an exceptionally difficult year for all of us, but certainly for him as well. One of the things that I find uplifting about goodbyes is that it provides a time to reflect on so many memories, both happy and not so happy, that are part of the fabric of our lives. In so doing, we feel the feelings, we learn the lessons, and we grow. And that is the way that we all fare well. And now I would like you to enjoy a very special music video that we have prepared in honor of AJ's last service with us all together.
Another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Tongue grabs you by the wrist, directs you where to go. So make the best of this test and don't ask why. It's not a question but a lesson learned in time. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life.
We love you, AJ. You've been a good.
So take the photographs and still frames in your mind. Hang it on a shelf in good health and good time. Tattoos and memories and dead skin on trial. For what it's worth, it was worth all the while. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life.
Good luck.
AJ, we're so sorry you and Ada are leaving. We will miss your light, your love, and all your thoughts for our church.
AJ, I love you. We're going to miss you. You did a fantastic job, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck in Rochester.
And watch out for the snow.
Happy trails, AJ.
It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life.
We wish you all the best in Rochester.
I'm sorry to see you go.
It's been a joy, a pleasure, and many great memories will remain after you've left. Take care.
Bye, AJ.
It's something unpredictable, and in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life.
Hi, AJ. We are really going to miss you, and we feel so blessed that you were able to at least spend the time with us that you did.
Hi, AJ. I wish you and Ada nothing but success and joy in your future adventure. And in words from my time as an LRYer at my UU church growing up, may the longtime sun shine upon you, all love surround you, and the pure light within you guide you all the way home. Be well, be safe, and take care.
Thank you so much for that absolutely beautiful goodbye tribute farewell video. That was very moving, and it was wonderful to see many of you that I was not able to meet with one-on-one to see that goodbye. So thank you to Barb and to everybody else who put together that. So like I said, with those one-to-one goodbyes over the last 2 weeks, I've said goodbye a number of times, many times, in those one-on-one goodbyes, in final meetings with committees, in my last board meeting. So hopefully I'm practiced enough at this point, because this really is my final opportunity to say goodbye from the pulpit to all of you. And it feels fitting and right that it has fallen on this auspicious occasion of the summer solstice. As every solstice and equinox, like many high holy days in all traditions, are opportunities to pause and to take stock and to move into the next chapter of the year, honor the transitions that are going on around us and within us always. Like the story for all ages this morning, there's a rhythm and a repetition to marking the turning of the wheel. Although each solstice and equinox marks a goodbye to one season and a hello to the next, we also know that we will roll around the wheel and find ourselves in the same place in time again, same place on the wheel, although we'll be a year older. I like that in the Mo Willem story, the characters deal with the end of the book by asking for it to be read over again. I can imagine reading that book to a child and then reading it over and over immediately in an inescapable loop almost, at least until one or the other person falls asleep. But at a certain point, the reader, perhaps reaching a certain reading comprehension or age level, right? The reader might get bored of reading the same story over and over. And so they would say goodbye to that book and pick up another one. The individual book may end, but the adventure of reading always continues. Likewise, each year may pass from an anticipated future to the lived present, and then finally into the irrevocable past. But the adventure and cycles of life continue on forever. Whether through our own lives or through those that love us, were molded by us, carrying forward our spirit and memory. And so here we are on this solstice, marking the time, marking the transition into summer. And of the two solstices, summer is definitely the more active and energetic in contrast to the more contemplative Yule in December. And that energy and action is certainly where I feel the energy of my life right now, as I've been working to wrap things up here, preparing for my work at our association's General Assembly next week, and preparing, of course, for a big cross-country move to upstate New York. And of course, you all have been very busy as well, right? Your leaders are hard at work, have been hard at work wrapping up the church year with the annual meeting last week. They've been hard at work preparing for Reverend Alex's arrival in August, and not to mention all the very deep preparation needed to transition into multi-platform worship and programming, and anticipating the return of more than just the worship leaders back into this beautiful building in hopefully a few short months. So it's a very active transition and a joyful one, even as there is also sadness at saying goodbye. I will miss all of you and the vibrant, loving community that you have developed here. And I must confess disappointment that we weren't able to have more time together, and that what time we did have was limited and impacted by the reality of the pandemic. And I recognize that adding my own ministerial transition into that year where we were already dealing with all the pandemic stuff just made for an even more difficult spring and even more difficult 2021 than you were anticipating. But I have really appreciated everybody's immediate and unwavering understanding and support as I do what is necessary for my family's health. And again, back to the joy. I'm really joyful and I'm really excited for what comes next for Sierra Foothills Unitarian Universalists. Coming out of the pandemic, beginning a new ministry with Reverend Alex, there's so much opportunity in this area in Placer County and the surrounding counties, Sierra Foothills, so much opportunity to be a beacon of liberal and progressive faith in this area. And so many opportunities, so many other religious organizations and nonprofit organizations to build real relationship with and to work together on all aspects of social justice. When we entered the pandemic, our nation was at the tail end of a very difficult 4 years, unsure of what would come in the 2020 election. Now, at least there is a respite from the rising fascism in our country. But in many ways, I caution you that this means that there is more work to do and harder work to do. The work of keeping allies accountable rather than just opposing a common enemy. The work of securing democracy so that our leaders actually represent the majority will of the people rather than simply resisting and slowing down someone who is currently in office. I would be very excited to see from afar how this congregation rises to the challenge of the times. And I know that you will be in excellent hands with Reverend Alex, as well as in the hands of your thoughtful, compassionate, effective board of trustees at the helm, along with all the other committee chairs and leaders and volunteers and pillars of this community. You are truly a community of leaders. And I suppose that's really part of the fare thee well piece that Meg mentioned, as she deconstructed our modern farewell into fare thee well. Now, her mention of that reminded me of another deconstruction, that of the word goodbye, which has its origins in a 16th century shorthand for the longer God be with ye, which it was a shorthand for the written word. So it would actually be written as God be W ye, Y-E, right? But with no spaces in there. So that you can, if you can imagine what that looks like, it would be easily elided into goodbye. Now, of course, over time, the God part of that was maybe changed into good by changing that vowel there, which partly made it maybe a little more secular. It also matches other salutations like good morning and good evening, right? And of course, it certainly strikes me as very UU to replace the word God with good. But whatever each of us might replace or translate in the place of the word God, or if it is in fact the word God for you that you would like to be there, I do wish for God to be with you. I hope in our parting, the spirit of life and love, that the great mystery which grounds us and surrounds us, the compassion of the Amitabha Buddha, the spirit of creativity and humanity, the divine presence of many names and no name. Whoever or whatever it is that accompanies you on your spiritual journeys, that which is always there for you in times of transition like these, I wish and hope that it is fully present and most available to you in this and every challenge or joy to come. Now, for some of you, this is your first time at a Unitarian Universalist congregation that is in ministerial transition. Although many of you were here when the last settled ministers left in 2017. So in light of that, I do want to make one note on process that a number of folks have asked me about in our farewell, so I want to make sure I point it out here, which is to remind you that there is a very good practice for congregational and ministerial health during transitions, which is basically a zero contact policy that will be instituted after I leave, which basically means that after next week, there should be no contact, emails, phone calls, texts, or any communication between any member of Sierra Hill UU and their former minister, AJ. You may have heard this as expressed as, well, it needs to be a period of 1 year or 3 years or some other amount of time. But what's actually relevant about this period of no contact isn't how much time has passed, but about whether you, the congregation, are now firmly established with your new member, with your new minister in ministerial relationship, pastoral relationship, and I with my new congregation. both need time to build and tend to those relationships. And the other piece is whether Reverend Alex and I have had time to articulate covenantal agreement between each of us as to how we will navigate my being the most recent former minister. So I cannot make any promises about how long that process will take, but what I can promise is that I will be in communication with Reverend Alex about that covenanting work when time is appropriate. So fret not that zero contact policy. It sounds kind of intimidating. There's probably a better word for it, but it is not a permanent thing. But even if we were to never have the opportunity to speak again, know that we will always be connected by our time spent together in these 2 years, and also by being part of a larger community of Unitarian Universalists across the nation and across the globe. We're part of a larger covenant than that of any single congregation or community or ministerial call or length of ministry, whether it's 2 years or 30 years. We are all Unitarian Universalists. We are called to progressive religious impulse, called to make justice real in the world and in our own lives, called to care for one another and for the earth, respecting and celebrating diversities of all kinds. Like the metaphor of reading a single book compared to the adventure of reading, my ministry here is ended and a new one begins. And that new one will also inevitably come to a close at some point. But all the while, the adventure and exploration of Unitarian Universalism will need never cease. It will continue. And so while this, and also this goodbye, need not feel quite so permanent for some of those reasons mentioned, in some small way, it is true that all goodbyes are a practice for the big one. The final goodbye we will say to everyone and all that we know. I'm honored and humbled by the wonderful goodbye that I feel I have received from you all and that I hope that you have received from me. So let it be a good goodbye, remembering the words, the immortal words of the poet. To live in this world, you must be able to do 3 things. To love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing that your own life depends on it. And when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. May it be so. Blessed be. I love you. And please join me now in a favorite hymn of mine for the last time, Blue Boat Home.
Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun my sail and moon my rudder, as I ply the starry seas, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
It is often said that the offering is the gift of the free church. That is to say, everything this congregation is and has is only what we bring to it, our time, our talents, and our treasures. In person, this is embodied by the powerful ritual of literally passing the plate and chipping in. With our online services, however, we ask that you contribute to our collection after the service by going to our website or using the text to give option. As part of our ethic of generosity, we also split our monthly collection with a local community organization that is aligned with our values. And this month, the Share the Plate recipient is NorCal, a community-based activist organization that offers a variety of services and asylum to those seeking asylum who are undocumented persons. Its mission is to build infrastructure against oppression and empower communities to share resources and support. I'd like to thank you all for your generosity.
As we call the energies of the direction into our time of worship, so must we acknowledge their release. Spirit of North, power of Earth, thank you for your presence and your strength. Hail and farewell. Spirit of the West, power of water, thank you for your presence and your flexibility. Hail and farewell. Spirit of the South, power of sun, thank you for your presence and your passion. Hail and farewell. Spirit of the East, power of air, thank you for your presence and your likeness. Hail and farewell. And although our chalice has already been extinguished by our fan, please join with me in the words to more ritually extinguish the chalice of this service. As we go forth, may we carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Blessed be.